During one of the big cultural gatherings almost a year ago, I made 5 proposals, and I will share these with you as well. First, I think if we are to really seriously consider our cultural heritage, we need to do a serious study. And Ritu mentioned this. We need to do a very extensive documentation and study of what we have. I'm right now running 2 projects. One to document the written heritage. Bhutan has over 2,000 temples. I'm assuming 10% of those temples will have a very good library. That's 200 libraries. We have photographed 30 libraries, and those libraries have revealed texts that have not been available or seen until now by anyone in the Himalayas. So we haven't taken stock of what we really have. Then recently we have started a project to do documentation of the intangible cultures, and let alone the items of intangible culture. Right now we only have a rough list of the types. It's close to 1,000 types of intangible cultures. So when I say type, it's like situ. Situ is one type. But how many situs do we have? We don't know. And then there's Rabne as a type. How many Rabnes we have? We don't know. So we haven't done any serious study of our own heritage actually. There is that need of doing an extensive stock taking and documentation as a priority, because a lot of the custodians of these cultures are dying. Second, especially with GNH, this is very relevant. We have to rethink our mode of accounting and evaluation. Last year I was in Punakha around this time of the year when the J. Khenpo was giving his teachings there. Most people would have just looked at it as a cultural event and economically a very wasteful time, because 100,000 people sitting there for weeks on end listening to the J. Khenpo. I think that's economically not at all productive now. But the problem is, it's not true that it's not productive. You just have to think in a slightly different way. How many, to begin with, the J. Khenpo was not there teaching people to be greedy and selfish and violent. No? He was there teaching people to be selfless, compassionate, honest, and so forth. 100,000 people getting these lessons for about 2 weeks or so. Imagine them going back home and telling their family members and friends. The ripple effect will be enormous, and then indirectly it will cut down the cost of our police, the cost of our courts. I mean, imagine a society without a real good moral culture. The cost will be enormous compared to a society that has a very good moral, ethical culture. So the J. Khenpo's sessions in Punakha, I would see as a very productive economic event, but in the long run, not immediately rewarding, but this is how society works. It really has to go in stages, and it has to have kind of a ripple effect, like the trickle-down effect through neoliberalism, but in this case a much better one. So we have to have a better way of accounting and assessing our the benefits of cultural practices. Then third, I think when we talk about culture, we really need to involve the cultural experts, the people who hold the culture. I don't know how many of us here really hold Bhutanese culture properly, say comparing to a granny in a village. So it makes no difference talking about culture in a foreign language here in the basement of a posh hotel. You really need to have the practitioners involved, give them ideas on how to promote it, how to preserve it, give them ideas on how to leverage it for better economic outcomes. So I think our efforts on culture, our dialogues and our forums on culture should involve people who are the real custodians, the real upholders of cultures. Otherwise it's going to be quite meaningless. That's what I was proposing. And then fourth, I thought the problem that Bhutan is going through right now in terms of culture is a result of our education system. And unless the education system does something serious in bringing back Bhutanese languages effectively, also incorporating some cultural practices in the curriculum and syllabus, I don't think it's going to change. Our education system is heavily based on accreditation and certification. You show a piece of certificate from India as an architect. You spend 4 years within the classroom walls and come with a certificate. You are a licensed architect in Thimphu. You can sign a drawing. But think about the illiterate Zopen who built the Gangting temple. This Zopen, this chief architect, is illiterate. But he had all the maps in his head. He has built zongs, he has built temples, he has built farmhouses all his life. But he is not qualified to sign a drawing for the Thimphu City Corporation. Do you think that's acceptable, that kind of bias? Traditional upbringing and traditional education in many ways was much more effective because it was personalized tutorial training, apprenticeship training. There was a lot of focused training incorporating a lot of practices, both theory and practice. But we dump all that. You can't even become an MP with a traditional upbringing. You know that. So all our legislations are totally against traditional cultural upbringing and training. So where can we find a place for culture in the modern Bhutanese sort of government context? It's disappointing. It's really saddening. The fifth one, I thought, while being very staunch promoters or supporters of culture, one has to, of course, be flexible and open to change. And I think the theme of this forum works well, to imagine change. Now, we cannot expect culture to remain as it is in a static form. We have to be open to change. And that change, as someone said earlier this morning, one of the young people, should happen without losing the core values, I think. That there are some timeless values and timeless essence that can be passed on, but the form, the way things are done can change gradually. And especially talking about commercialization, which one of you touched earlier, we cannot expect current rural villages to perform the same festivals with no economic gain as they did in the past, because they are living in a different economic context right now. So whether or not we describe it as commercialization, I think there should be some economic gain out of what they do. So we have to think smart to perhaps preserve culture and at the same time use these cultures as a way of making a good income for the village or for the community. So we have the challenge of really keeping the essence in the core, making culture appealing and affordable, instrumental and attractive. Big challenges, but hopefully we'll manage. As any culture, it will evolve, it is dynamic, and Bhutan, hopefully, so far we did well, we will hopefully do well to keep the cultural practices strong and vibrant. So with that wish, I'll stop. Thank you.